Did we, together with Honda, revolutionise a legendary sport? Did we make Moto Gymkhana accessible to the masses? It might sound exaggerated, but that's exactly the question we're tackling today. And with that, welcome to 1000 PSTV. To dig into these questions from the intro, we have to travel to Japan, the home of Moto Gymkhana. Back in 2023, Carlos and I were there to watch this sport live. Actually, we were there for the Tokyo Motorcycle Show, but we said, hey, since we're already here, let's go check it out in person. I didn't have glasses back then, but I still got a full look into this sport because we were at the Rion circuit, where a Moto Gymkhana training session was taking place. We have contacts there, and they showed us around the grounds. They introduced us to riders.
Gymkhana A級の辻家春彦です。よろしくお願いします。
So you are the Japanese champion of Moto Gymkhana.
And above all, they showed us what Moto Gymkhana is really about. And it's not just riding around in circles a bit. No, it's a genuinely technical discipline. The whole body has to work together to control the motorcycle. Of course, it takes precise control of the bike to get through the course quickly at low speed. And Moto Gymkhana isn't just exciting on the small course. No, it's also relevant in everyday life, out on the road, using these techniques for your own safety. But what exactly is Moto Gymkhana? Let's talk about the sport for a moment. As you can read on my shirt here, it originated in Japan in the 1960s and 70s. Motorcyclists there came together, riders who either didn't want to or maybe couldn't ride on big racetracks and instead wanted to compete on small courses. Courses are marked out with cones. You have to ride the course in the correct order and sequence. Of course, there are penalty seconds. If you knock over a cone, you get penalty seconds. If you take the wrong route, you get penalty seconds. So in the end, it's not a classic race, but more a race against the clock. Moto Gymkhana is also often described as the sport where the goal is to go as fast as possible while riding slowly. That means there are no high speeds involved. No, it's really about clean, technical riding, good visual technique, proper body control, and above all, staying fully in command of your motorcycle. And when we were there, we quickly found out there's no single perfect motorcycle for Moto Gymkhana. We saw old two-stroke machines, classic inline-4 bikes, and also super bikes that had been lightly modified with higher handlebars so they could be wrestled through the tight course. But still, there's no fixed recipe for the perfect Moto Gymkhana bike. What matters is that all the vehicles have to be street legal, so you can't show up with the wildest race conversion running slicks. No, it still has to be road legal. So you can see, in Japan, this is genuinely a big deal. If you want to learn more, Carlos and I made a video there where we talk to the riders and take a close look at the sport. I can really recommend it, check it out. But if we look at ourselves, at Europe, and especially the German-speaking region, the sport is still pretty unknown there. I don't want to say it doesn't exist at all. For example, in Germany, there's a club that regularly holds training sessions and competitions. Still, I wouldn't say every motorcyclist knows about this sport. Why is that? Well, partly it's commercial, I think. Moto Gymkhana is still pretty underground, and honestly, I think that's part of its appeal. It's not over-commercialised. There are no big sponsors behind it, no camera crews, no elaborately built-out paddocks. No, people show up with their vans, unload the bike, or maybe ride it there themselves, so the sport is simply not very well known, which can actually be good for the sport because it comes across as very down-to-earth, very close to the everyday rider. Of course, because it's less well known, the barrier to entry can also feel bigger. People don't have a connection to the sport. They don't know what bike they need, whether they're good enough, or whether they'd first have to become a better rider. There are simply a lot of barriers to this sport right now, but that will surely improve in the coming years. Hopefully helped along by the thing we're about to talk about, And finally, as I said at the start, it's not an easy sport. You can't just hop on and start setting fast times. It's a very technical sport, so if you want to take Moto Gymkhana seriously, it takes a lot of practice, a lot of time, and that naturally makes it harder to get into if you just want to do it casually on the side. But to give this sport a bit more visibility, we started an experiment at the Newchurch Summit 2026. We said we wanted to ride Moto Gymkhana, and we thought about which partner we could bring on board, who has the right bike for it, and we landed on Honda pretty quickly because Honda has just unveiled the new WN7 for 2026. An electric motorcycle, a naked bike, easy to ride, but above all electric, meaning no clutch and instant acceleration. That was really exciting for us, so we built a competition around it. In the stunt area, where Rob Bagaros and Sarah Lazito had just been riding, we then had a course laid out by none other than Bernd Hema. I actually called him again today and asked him, "Hey Bernd, what were you thinking with that course?" And he told me, "Well, it's simple, Horvat. We wanted to show that Moto Gymkhana on electric can be really exciting, especially to watch, because we showed on the course that acceleration matters and the Honda WN7 has it, plus agility." We had a low centre of gravity and because of that, a very tightly laid out course. It included tight slalom sections, figure-8 loops, and of course, acceleration and braking to a mark. I even rode it myself, simply because one participant unfortunately dropped out, and I can tell you, it was hard. We figured, sure, I'll just ride around in a circle a bit. That was not the case. I cut the slalom horribly short. I rode the figure-8s pretty half-heartedly too. And how did it end? I didn't get the best time. The penalty seconds put me at the bottom of the scoreboard. It was a competition among the participants at the Newchurch Summit. Beforehand, we'd put out a big call. Who wants to take part? Because the winner would get a weekend at a Honda test ride hotel, including a test motorcycle. That means 2 nights for 2 people with a rental bike. A really great prize, and of course, we did determine a winner in the end. It was a tough competition. There were people there with incredible talent. I wasn't one of them, but in any case, it was a genuinely exciting competition, and it was great to see that it was also exciting to watch, because there was some serious riding on display. As mentioned, before us there was a stunt show. Sarah Lazito, who rode in the Black Woman show, went on right before Moto Gymkhana, but the stand stayed full. People stuck around to watch this competition, maybe partly out of curiosity about this Honda WN7. We've already made a separate video about the WN7, testing it in the Alps at Newchurch, but especially in the context of this sport, we naturally asked ourselves, can this motorcycle revolutionize the sport? If that's the goal, it's already doing quite a lot right because it's simply easy to ride. There's no clutch. We just use the throttle. We twist and accelerate. Acceleration is actually a key factor in Moto Gymkhana. Even when the straights between corners are short, if you've got the power to get to the next cone quickly, plus real braking performance, you can gain a few tenths of a second there. And that shows up on the scoreboard in the end. The WN7 also has really light handling. I mean, we're talking about Honda, the largest motorcycle manufacturer in the world, so they know how to build a bike, how a naked bike should turn in. That means it's easy to ride, and combined with the low center of gravity, things like slalom riding become almost effortless if you really put in the effort. The WN7 also brings another huge advantage. You can very easily recreate Moto Gymkhana in urban areas. Because what do you actually need? You need some space, maybe a few cones to mark out a course, and that's it. Because even if you ride and practice on the course all day, no neighbour is going to complain. Since we've got a silent electric motorcycle, that makes it very easy for the WN7 to help the sport spread and bring in new people because you don't necessarily have to drive 2 hours to the nearest racetrack. No, you can set up a course right where you live or nearby and just give it a try. So let's finally answer the question. Did we revolutionize Moto Gymkhana? I'd say not really, because Moto Gymkhana doesn't need a revolution. Moto Gymkhana is a traditional sport that above all promotes riding safety. In other words, you really learn how to handle your motorcycle. It's not about speed, it's absolutely about vehicle control. And that matters a lot in everyday life too, when you're out riding on your own and have your bike under control and know how to react in tight situations. But the Honda WN7 does help make this sport more accessible to the masses. Because the WN7 is approachable, There's no clutch, no heat build-up, and you don't need to hit a certain rev range to keep the engine from stalling. No, with electric, we really have a very easy-to-ride motorcycle, which means more people can get into this sport and maybe discover a new hobby. So finally, I'd be curious, have you ever tried Moto Gymkhana? In our last Moto Gymkhana video, even the club from Germany showed up in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts there too. But Moto Gymkhana, does the topic interest you? And the WN7 at Newchurch. Did that interest you? Should we bring this back in 2027? Bigger, better? I'd love to know. Write it in the comments. And otherwise, thank you so much for watching. It was an exciting experiment we ran at Newchurch, tied to a sport with so much tradition, one that's genuinely close to my heart. Not just because I happen to be wearing the matching t-shirt right now, but because it's just really great. And with the WN7, it brings a cool, modern twist to it. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Bye and Baba.